experiment. And based on their answer to that, we took out all the people that did not read the policy, and we kept in all the people that did. And we ran this again. And what we found out here is that still we had the same results. Of the people who did read the policies, the people that read the categorical policies, once again, were the ones that comprehended and understood what they read much better than the others. So once again, user perception and user comprehension is not aligned. Now, in order to ask them if they read the privacy policy or not, we didn't just flat out say, did you read the privacy policy in our experiment? Because, of course, people are going to say, yes, I read it, because they think I was supposed to read it, so I'll say, yes, I did. So what we did is we asked them, why didn't you read the entire set of privacy policies of the website? We went ahead and up front assumed that they didn't. And by doing that, we gave them several different choices that we had learned from our pilot studies and earlier studies. We gave them several different choices to give us as to why they didn't read it. Maybe it was too long, they didn't feel like it, they didn't think it was important, it was boring. But then we did give them the choice, hey, wait a minute, I did read that policy. And so those people are the ones that we included here. And when we compared all the different variants, the people that read the entire policy most often were the people that saw the categorical variant. So what we found is the people that saw the categorical variant are the people that understood the privacy practices, and they're also the people that actually read through the whole policy. The people that were faced with the other three variants, they didn't understand as well, they didn't read as well, they didn't feel as good about reading and then comprehending. But contrary to that, what we saw is that the people that read the very detailed one that had the goals and the vulnerabilities and the natural language policy, they felt like they understood it, and they felt like it was good, and they felt like the company was going to protect their information. So their perception is different from what they actually understand. So the next thing is demographics. People always ask about demographics. Are males different than females? Are older people different from younger people? Does education make a difference? And so forth. And what we found out was that there was no correlation in our sample in the demographic factors. The only correlation we found was with the older group, the group aged 57 and above. They scored lower on the comprehension questions. And they also felt less secure in certain situations. So that's the only demographic category that had an effect. Education didn't matter. Gender didn't matter. Nothing else did. It was just the age factor. So to summarize, we just talked about comprehension, and we found out that people can really comprehend the categorical way to express privacy policies. We also found out that people will read them more often if they're arranged by categories. From the perception point of view, though, we found out that people feel more secure giving their information to one of the companies that uses the natural language policy that has the goals and vulnerabilities highlighted. So that's the more detailed policy. We also found out that those same policies are the ones that lead people to think that that company is going to protect their information the most. And also, that's the one that people think is explained the best. That's also the one where people think their understanding is the best. But as we pointed out, there's a misalignment between user perception and comprehension. So there's some good things to this and there's some bad things to this. We can take away from this that we need to start looking more at categorical representation of privacy policies, because even today and while we've been here, we've heard about people mentioning things about machine-readable policies and different methodologies to take care of protecting privacy and letting the users know about it. But right now, all websites have a privacy policy, and they have to have them for different legislative reasons. So if they can just go in there and rearrange them to follow one of these categorical representations, it can really help people to feel more comfortable about reading them. Because in some of our earlier work, what we found is that people might look at a policy and then it's just too much. There's too much legalese. There's too many words. It's too long, too complex, and so they don't bother to read it. They just assume that someone else is going to read it for them. But with the categorical representation, people will be more inclined to actually read it. Another thing is that companies could take from this is some of the more negative things. They could use some of the information that we found here to misguide people and trick them into feeling more secure than they really should. Okay, so I was asked to finish up around 5:10 in case there were any questions. But first I want to point out that this research was funded by one of our NSF grants. And if you have any later questions or want to know more about the work that we've done in the area of privacy policy, you can find out either on my website or on the privacyplace.org. So right now, if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I just went through and pointed out some of the highlights of our data. So if anyone has any detailed questions.
I guess we're on. So the results have a number of elements to them that appear a little bit contradictory. What would you say, if I were designing a healthcare site, would be the best way to present policy for the most number of people to be able to feel comfortable and confident and knowledgeable about how I'm going to protect or abuse their privacy?
So that's a good question, because I guess it comes down to which is more important from your company's standpoint. Do you want the users to feel comfortable, or do you want them to be more inclined to actually read what you've got and understand it? So if you're an honest business, I would think that you would want your consumers to read what you have to say so they can learn about your privacy practices, and then at the same time you would want them to understand what it is you're doing. And if that's the case, then using the simple categorical format where you just display the 12 different categories and allow users to click on those and carry them over to more detailed information, that would be the best approach. If you wanted to be a little devious and get your consumers to feel comfortable and feel secure, but not really understand what you're doing and not really read about everything you're doing, then one of the others, or the way privacy policies are currently done, just the normal natural language approach would be the answer.
How did you administer the survey, and how many were given in order to collect the nearly 1,000?
Okay, so what we did with all of our more recent surveys that we've done, they've been web-based surveys, and we start off with a very broad marketing strategy where we post it online and we start off advertising. We send information, send a little news note to all of our friends, our colleagues, which might account for the higher educated population in this case. That wasn't necessarily the case for our earlier survey, but we send it to all of our friends, our family, grandparents, everyone that we know, and then ask them to send it out. And when we ask them to send it out, we ask them to tell us where they send it. So we can kind of track, we can't track all the way where it goes, but we can kind of track a couple of levels. So, it went from, us in academia to some of our neighbors to people at church, people at youth groups, not youth groups, but people at parent, what are they called, parent groups, things like that. And we had a wide variety of people involved. Another thing that we did is we had it posted on various news sites. It was posted on the NC State's homepage 1 week. So when anyone came to NC State's webpage, they saw our little news up there to click on that link. It was posted at other news sites as well. Our previous survey, we had a little blurb in the Raleigh N&O, in the News and Observer. So we just kind of get the word out, and we try to track it as far as we can to make sure we're getting a diverse group. And given that we have